One of my most anticipated games of 2024 has a brand new story trailer debuting today. If you're watching this video later, I probably co-streamed it and gave my reaction. That'll be a video that follows this one. It'll be separate. And I've really got to say, I am concerned about Star Wars Outlaws, and not because of anything they have shown. I think the gameplay up to now really has impressed me. I think it looks great, but there are other factors at play when it comes to anything related to Star Wars, some of which is the previous Star Wars games, as well as some of the shows. But we also have other big IP, big franchises that have been leveraged by Massive and Ubisoft, like the Avatar game, and I think that game was pretty much unfairly criticized. It was one of the best looking games to launch, but the reception and the criticism was certainly very consistent. It touched on certain themes, and that's obviously a concern with a game like Star Wars Outlaws. Will it fall prey to some of those same mistakes? Now, I put all of the good information right here at the beginning. It's a longer video. You're like, why is this video so long? It's a live stream, so this channel is a live streaming channel primarily. So if you want to be here for the discussions, hit subscribe, hit the bell button. We also do extra behind-the-scenes streams where we plan the shows and you get to see how it's done. So if you want to be a part of that, hit the join button and pick that $6 member tier. The more we see from Star Wars Outlaws, the more excited that I get, but as a huge Star Wars fan, I cannot help but feel worried about this game, and for good reason. Disney was pretty extreme with their demands for Star Wars games. The Star Wars franchise has been all over the place with their TV shows and their movies, and big IP like Star Wars, it's just a tall order for video games. It doesn't really guarantee success. We saw that with the Avatar game. So let me lay out some backstory here, because Disney made demands about Star Wars games you may be unfamiliar with. There was the thing that happened with Jedi Survivor, then the game's director from Jedi Survivor, and then there was the Avatar game. So I want to look at that, but then also what happened. There was the first trailer. There's the new story trailer that's coming out, that has come out. There is new tech info about the game as well, and what it will feature on PC. And after all that, I'm going to kind of outline my position. I've got a mixture of feelings about this. I am very excited for this game, but I am also concerned as well. It's hard not to think that once a game is on my most anticipated list, it ends up disappointing me. So Jedi Survivor's launch last year was an example of that. Now this year we've got Hellblade 2 coming out at 30 FPS, and that obviously was, and still is, my most anticipated game this year. And then I think Star Wars Outlaws is a very close second. And the last thing I want to do is I am going to stick to my original prediction about this game. I actually think Star Wars Outlaws is going to be good, even if I am worried. So let's just walk through the backstory here. It all started out really great, right? Jedi Fallen Order. It seemed like, hey, good Star Wars games aren't just possible, like they can be really, really great Star Wars stories. Like, it's one thing to get a good video game, but it's another thing to have a very good Star Wars story inside of a video game. Then a steady trickle of Star Wars game leaks and announcements started coming out. Respawn was working on a Star Wars game. Massive was working on a Star Wars game. We now know that that is Outlaws. There was also Star Wars Eclipse, and then the KOTOR remake, which was made, being made and not being made, and now it's being made again, and we're hearing that, PlayStation is thinking differently about it. Disney at that time went on record saying that they wanted a new Star Wars game every 6 months. And that, to me, at the time, that was kind of a record scratch. I was like, wait, what are you? That sounds kind of crazy. It's one thing to cast a wide net and be like, hey, we're going to let a lot of studios and a lot of different teams make Star Wars games, okay? You see this with Warhammer, right? You take an IP and you let pretty much anybody make a game. It's another thing, though, to say we want a new game every 6 months. I remember saying that was concerning given everything we know about game development. You launch games when they're ready, not according to some corporate-driven calendar. Then, in walks Jedi Survivor, pretty much confirming all of my concerns. The release date announcement for Jedi Survivor was the first red flag. It seemed very fast. My gut instinct just told me something was off. Then they delayed the game by a mere 6 weeks, and during that and kind of after that, there was an interview with IGN with the game's director, and he refused extra development time from publisher EA to avoid Jedi Survivor having a competitive release date with a game like Zelda. And that just strikes me as very much backwards. Since when does a game director refuse more time to get a game ready and is concerned with having a competitive launch date? That honestly sounds like he's sort of covering up for a decision that was out of his hands. Being concerned about the release date and being competitive, that sounds like something Disney, that sounds like something the publisher would be concerned with, not the game director. Now, the reason we know that they needed more time and that this answer that he gives is completely and utterly bogus. There's no way he was out of touch with the state of the game. The game launched and was so glaringly and embarrassingly not ready, I'm kind of surprised he even said what he said. The game still has a 66% on Steam. It got its last patch in January. Okay, we're in the middle of April now, and that last patch addressed very little. It also took 5 months for them to fix performance mode on the consoles, which, to the devs' credit, it did get rid of all of the major problems, and Jedi Survivor was then actually playable, and I happily beat it. But waiting that long proves that the game easily needed another half of year in the oven, like minimum, right? And the fact that they haven't really been able to turn the score around on Steam, that's embarrassing for an IP of that size. The level of support they should be able to give that game, I continue to say that the state of Jedi Survivor is embarrassing. Keep in mind, we're a few weeks from the game being out for an entire year. Your Star Wars. Get it right. Fix it. Do right by the consumers. Oh, and the week after they fixed performance mode in Jedi Survivor, the director of the game left and returned to Santa Monica. Now, to be fair, he has worked on God of War in the past, so maybe he wanted to kind of return to his roots, but not seeing the Jedi trilogy to completion, I think, is concerning, especially with the timing of it. It's like, well, we got it to a respectable place on console. I'm getting out of here, because in the wake of the Jedi Survivor release, they didn't stay quiet about the fact that the third game, you know, the star of the game, Cameron Monaghan, he confirmed that the third game was already in the works. I can't help but think that Disney timeline for a delivery drove the director away after they got the console version to that respectable place, and he was like, I'm getting out of here. I don't want to do this again for the next game. Especially if he was sort of having to be tasked with running damage control for interviews and saying, yeah, we didn't need any extra time, when they so blatantly did, okay? I don't know why you would, do that, unless, of course, you're lying for Big Daddy Disney. Then if you look at Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, it was technically praised for how great the game looked. Like, I could not believe how gorgeous it was. Digital Foundry had nothing but praise for its technical prowess, but largely, that game failed to achieve critical acclaim and strong consumer reception. It was 40% off a mere 12 days after launch. That's usually a sign of trouble with respect to launch sales. It got a 72 on Metacritic. It's got a 75 from the users there. And then if you go to Xbox and PlayStation, it's like between a 79 and an 80. So that's not terrible, but it was pretty lukewarm. And the criticism was that it was basically just Far Cry. And as much as I enjoyed Avatar, and I even defended the game against this, you can't argue people into enjoying a format that they feel like they've played before, right? Which obviously, if you're looking even at the footage here of Star Wars Outlaws, that open world game could dial in some of those tropes, Listen, I get it with the sake of, Avatar and people being kind of frustrated. The scaffolding underneath the game just felt too familiar for folks to get past it. It was a really pretty game, but you still could tell you were kind of playing a Far Cry game. I was hunting an animal one evening before I took a break from the game because a bunch of other games came out that I had to give my attention to, and I was going through that typical irritation of I couldn't get the animal to drop the thing that I need, and then the animal kept hearing me when it wasn't supposed to and running away. It's like if I go any slower, I'm not moving. That always happened in the Far Cry games. And it was like, this is a mini game. This is supposed to be something that's relatively easy to do. I'm just going to get a skin to upgrade something, right? Well, that was something in the Far Cry games that annoyed me. So that's not a main content loop. It should be quick. It should be fun. It shouldn't be tedious and frustrating. So I started to see what people were talking about, even if I felt like the game deserved a little bit of a better, criticism or reception. So enter stage left, Star Wars Outlaws. The debut trailer stole the show last year, okay? To me, it was the best reveal from the entire Summer Game Fest of 2023. The vibe of the game, the UI, the size, the gameplay, the variety, even finding out they're actually using a filter to make this game look like the lenses that were used in the 70s and the 80s for movies like Star Wars. Right here especially was the scene that caught my attention. I was like, it just has a vibe. It has a feel. I remember saying it reminds me of Andor. It looks like it has this cinematic quality, and it's not 30 FPS because that's not what cinematic is. Something about that shot just really stuck out to me. And so even if you watch, there's like lens flare from the lights, blaster shots, the speeder bikes. It's just so on brand for Star Wars. And now we've got a new story trailer. And as good as it may look, it doesn't really mean the concerns from everything previously just doesn't still linger. Just 3 weeks ago, NVIDIA announced that Outlaws is going to be shipping with DLSS 3, ray tracing, and reflex. And there's obviously speculation about Star Wars Outlaws, its release date landing in May. Just this morning, it was leaked that this game will be releasing in August, on August the 20th. Now, that was a leak from basically the premiere that we're going to see today, so we'll probably get that confirmed. But everyone was kind of hoping for a May the 4th release on Star Wars Day. I still can't believe they keep skipping over May the 4th because it's a Saturday and maybe they could have done early access. So let me give you my position on this, okay? This is honestly my second most anticipated game of the year, just behind Hellblade 2. And as a huge Star Wars fan, I really want this game to nail the format. But based on everything I've outlined, I am concerned, okay? This game seems incredibly ambitious. You got big open worlds, you got lots of levels of gameplay, there's stealth, there's third-person shooting, there's hand-to-hand, there's speeders, there's combat on the speeders, there's these large open spaces, there's cinematics that drive the story, there's even choices in the story, okay? I've not even mentioned space combat and space travel. It'd be very easy for the scope of this game to just get so broad that the open world becomes a predictable Ubisoft game, akin to Far Cry or Assassin's Creed. But the saving grace would be if the gameplay feels fresh and new within that familiar structure. I think that's what killed Avatar for a lot of people. The gameplay wasn't distinct enough, so the familiar Far Cry structure was just all anybody saw. There was nothing necessarily new that they felt like they were doing. Even though the game was very pretty, the graphics can only carry a game for so long. Now, thankfully, from what we have seen, the combat, the traversal, even the stealth gameplay, it feels like a very fresh take on stealth. It just feels like a Star Wars game. I know people are like, well, there's no lightsabers, but I'm more concerned about the Disney effect than the lack of lightsabers. If they're pushing for games like this to launch before they're ready, which I firmly believe is what happened to Star Wars Jedi Survivor, have they loosened up on the cadence targets that they want to see? Star Wars Jedi Survivor was the 9th most sold game in the US last year. So in the United States, that was the 9th most sold. So it was in the top 10. And that's a year where Hogwarts Legacy came out, a new Zelda, a Madden, a Spider-Man, a Diablo, a Call of Duty. It was a really, really big year. So I don't know if Jedi Survivor really stood a chance to chart any higher than it did. Like, to be higher than 9 would have been tough with the games it was competing against. And Disney may look at that and say, look, it works. We made a ton of money. Push out another big game regardless of problems, regardless of if it's not ready. But even though I'm worried, let me give you my prediction, because I am going to stick to my original prediction. I think this game will be good. Probably one of the biggest launches this year commercially, maybe even critically. I see evidence of passion in this game. Some of the earliest looks at Jedi Survivor gameplay, well, they were a bit janky. I remember talking about that with the audience. I was like, yeah, it does kind of look funny when Cal runs, and some of the graphics looked a little rough around the edges. Well, I see no evidence of that in Outlaws. Just the movie lens creative choice alone has me excited about the project, and the fact that they actually let you take off from the planets and the immersive nature of it. Even the UI and the font choice, it's just, the game just has like a vibe. Like, it feels like it's from a different era of time, which is always important, I think, for anything related to Star Wars. It needs to feel old and sign it kind of dirty and grungy, and it needs to have that Western feel, which everybody upset that there's no lightsabers. That's okay. Star Wars is at its best when it feels like a Western, at least in my opinion. In my experience with the TV shows, when a fan of Star Wars is at the helm, we get better content. And I would think that a fan of Star Wars would be the type of person that would say, we need to do something with the lens. We need to make the game feel like something from that era of time. So despite my worry, I think this game lands just not as one of the top sellers of 2024. I think it might actually land in Game Award nomination territory. Now, I'm not ready to say it's going to get a Game of the Year nomination, but art direction, I can certainly see this game getting a nomination for that just from the trailers alone. Looks very strong in that department. As well as an action game, I could see it being in that category as well. So let's just hope that my concerns don't become a reality like they did with Jedi Survivor, and Star Wars Outlaws turns out, maybe it could turn things around for Star Wars within the gaming world, but also for Ubisoft as well. But that's just what I think. What do you think? So let me give you my closing thoughts and conclusion on this. This is a way where I transition to talk to the live audience. I can't wait to talk to you guys about this one. And then we are going to watch that brand new story trailer together. Make sure you guys are smashing that like button if you're enjoying kind of the opening of the show here. So the first thing I want to say is I am obviously more invested in Star Wars property since I grew up with Star Wars, the toys, the movies, all of it, right? I'm a child of the 80s, and it's so hard not to get sort of personally invested into anything Star Wars related. I get very upset about the TV shows. And I remember playing Force Unleashed and thinking it was the pinnacle Star Wars game at the time. Even though the sequel was a bit of a letdown, I thought it laid good groundwork. And then, Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor, they're not just great video games, they're great Star Wars stories. I still want Trilla to return in the third game. I felt like she stole the show in the first game. So my concern for Outlaws is it's kind of mixed, both because as a gamer, but also as a Star Wars fan. Like, there's two sides to my brain that are sort of invested here. Second thing I want to say is I'm starting to temper my expectations when it comes to my most anticipated games, mainly to keep from being disappointed, even though I'll obviously be still disappointed if the game comes out and it's not ready and has a bunch of problems, but also because there are so many other games coming out. I just hope that I won't have to treat Outlaws the way I did Jedi Survivor and wait for fixes and patches to make the game playable. My conclusion is this: I am sticking to my original prediction that the game will be good, and hopefully the Star Wars Outlaws official story trailer helps cement that feeling even more. But I'm not going to hype this up or get people overly excited for anything related to Star Wars, not after some of the shows, and certainly not after how they treated Jedi Survivor. I really hope Outlaws can be the turning point and that Disney tightens up. Maybe, I meant to say loosens up, right? They need to loosen up on how often these games need to come out. They maybe even do a good job with Outlaws, and maybe that sets a good stage for the third Jedi game. Give them the amount of time they need to land in a great place. It's not always about, well, we sold a bunch of copies. Okay, well, your game looks terrible on Steam right now. Figure it out, fix it, and don't do that with the third game, and certainly don't do that with Star Wars Outlaws. But those are just my thoughts. Now it's time to hear your thoughts. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, guys. Thank you so much for being here. And do me a favor, double check that like button. Make sure you have given it that smash, that daily ritual. Let me pop out the chat. Looks like DK Bager may have taken the first gifted for the day, and he did. Han shot first, and so did you. There it is, the first gifted member of the day. A huge day yesterday as well. We got 76 gifted members yesterday, and we are going for a big goal this week. We're going for 2,500. We're currently a little under 2,200, so you guys are going to have to bring the heat. You did hit the goal last week, though. We did hit 2,300. So there will be a Rage game this Friday night. We'll be able to play a game. It's like Jump King, but you can play it with another person. So Madam and I will be playing that this Friday night. And we will be co-streaming the brand new Star Wars Outlaws official story trailer that goes live in just a couple of hours. And we did see that the Star Wars Outlaws release date was leaked as August the 20th, or it might have been the 24th. I think I misspoke in the monologue. That's okay. I mean, that's close enough. Is it the 20? No, it's August 30th. Sorry. I flipped my numbers around. 30th, 20th, same thing, right? William Lewis gifts a member. Thank you so much, William Lewis. Every 25, I give 5, so I help you guys hit that goal, and I help pay it forward and say thank you for the generosity. So thank you so much, William Lewis. And we are still getting those coffee orders. You guys have been submitting those. I got one last night. Thanks, everybody who's been continuing to order the coffee. If you've not ordered the coffee before, be sure to do that, especially if you are a coffee drinker. And yeah, I kind of tried to choose a shirt today in the vibe, like the 80s synthwave vibe. This game kind of has that, feel to it. So I chose one of the shirts from Into the AM that they sent me that's like that. She's just a female Han Solo, that's all. I don't get why people are saying that. I mean, she has a completely different setup. You know what I'm saying? She's not necessarily running around and being a Han Solo. Like, so every Jedi that you've ever played is just a Luke Skywalker. Like, obviously there's smugglers, there's gangsters, there's drug lords and all kind of scum and villainy in the Star Wars universe. Like, I don't know. When you play as Cal Kestis, did anybody ever say that? No, because that's not the way we look at games. No one's like, oh yeah, you're just a redheaded Luke Skywalker. Like, nobody said that. Cal Kestis was his own character, and he had his own story to tell. And I think it's great. I think it's some of the best. I think it's some of the best Star Wars storytelling that we've received. In this, I'm putting it up against even the movies and the shows. It's better than a lot of them. Heavy Metal Mama with 19 months. Welcome back. Keep doing you, boo. Thank you so much, Heavy Metal Mama. What are the categories that it had a chance for? I think bare minimum from what we've seen, it'll get a nomination for art direction. I also think it could get a nomination for action game, just from what we've seen. The combat looks cool, the speeders look cool, the space travel and fighting looks cool. I'm not prepared to say it's going to get a Game of the Year nomination. It would need to come out and get really, really consistently high praise. I think it's harder for games like this to get a Game of the Year nomination when it's attached to a big IP. We saw that with Spider-Man 2. We saw that with Hogwarts Legacy. I just think that's a challenge to win. It's one thing to get the nomination. I mean, it could get the nomination. I don't know. I think this year your front runners are like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Dragon's Dogma 2 and Hellblade 2. As long as it's a good game, obviously we're upset about the performance, but the technical advances that they're showing in that game could probably get a Game of the Year nomination. I could see Star Wars Outlaws getting one over Stellar Blade, especially, because I think Stellar Blade's another one people are kind of thinking of, like, what are the biggest games coming out this year that could land up there on the podium? Could the reason you're worried about the Star Wars game, could it be the writing, the storyline, the characters, or the character being changed? That was my concern with Gear 6. I'm not sure which character you're talking about. The first trailer I ever saw was the first time I ever knew anything about the game. I don't have any concerns about that. I feel like the writing in that scene where she pulls the gun on the woman from the Empire, I think that feels exactly how Star Wars is supposed to feel. When they get to the cantina, it just feels like Star Wars. It feels like a rough, kind of gritty environment, and there's people that could kill you, chase you, try to do a deal with you. I don't know. I feel like they've kind of nailed the vibe of what a Star Wars game should feel like. I don't. If she was a guy, I don't know if everybody would say, "Oh, you're just playing as Han Solo, but you're not Han Solo." Nobody would say that. They'd be like, "Oh, I can't wait to play as a smuggler." But because she's a girl, it's like this, oh, you're just playing as a female Han Solo. And it's just like, I don't get that. I wouldn't want to play a game as Han Solo, number one. I like playing as a new story. And when I played as Cal Kestis, I never once felt like, oh yeah, I'm just playing as a different version of Luke Skywalker. It was like, no, I'm getting to chart my own path as a Jedi. And we know in the Star Wars universe, there are bounty hunters, there are smugglers, there are gangsters, there are bad people, and getting to play as one of those people sort of that's in the sort of the criminal underbelly of the universe, I think that's cool. You said you think Star Wars is great without lightsabers. I never said that, but the Jedi Survivor games are Star Wars at its best, and that's not what I said either. If you're going to quote me, try and do it accurately. I said that you don't need lightsabers for Star Wars to be great. I said Star Wars is at its best when it feels like a Western. that can include lightsabers, and it doesn't need lightsabers. Are we going to argue that Mandalorian is not good Star Wars? It feels like a fantastic Western, which is exactly what Star Wars is supposed to feel like. And you don't need lightsabers for that. Now, I also didn't say the Jedi Survivor games are Star Wars at its best. I said it's some of the best storytelling. I would put it up against the movies and the TV shows. Is she really a criminal? They say you can become a full scoundrel in the game. Like, you can go full scoundrel and be like, you know, there's going to be choices in the game that determine those outcomes. You don't have to be full criminal, full good. You can. It sounds like you're going to be able to choose between, you know, varying pathways. And if they dropped a Mandalorian game right now, do you think anybody would be complaining that there's no lightsabers? No, you wouldn't. You'd be like, awesome. I'm going to play as a bounty hunter. I'm going to be able to fly around with a jetpack and use guns. And now there might be some melee combat if he has the spear, but nobody, I guarantee you, there'd be almost no uttered complaint about lack of lightsabers. People like, this is going to be awesome. I get to play as the Mandalorian. I don't. And also, how many games can you release where someone's running around with a lightsaber? I feel like that in and of itself would start to be like, okay, I mean, how many times are we going to do this? I mean, you could try to reinvent some of the combat, I guess, and have someone who's maybe more force focused or less force focused. I don't use the force a whole lot in games in both Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor. I strongly prefer just to go with the saber. You just got a lightsaber game? That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think that would be a great idea to be like, well, yeah, we have Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor, and here's another Jedi game. You know, I think there's room for a game where you're a bounty hunter. I think there's room for a game where you're a smuggler. You know, now I don't necessarily want to play a game as a stormtrooper, but I certainly think there's excellent stories that can be told within the Star Wars universe that are more Western in their feel and more gritty. You know, I think the game looks fantastic. I really, really do. You know, riding around. Like, think about it like this. How much of Star Wars, the original trilogy, are you watching and enjoying parts of the movie where there are no lightsabers? Right? The speeders on Endor, you know, like running around, you know, in a forest and shooting blasters and, you know what I'm saying, taking down walkers, getting in fights as an X-Wing. Like, there's so much going on in Star Wars that's awesome and exciting. I wonder if you actually stripped down how much lightsaber footage there is in 4, 5, and 6. It probably pales in comparison to how often there's like a shootout or, you know, blaster fights or space battles or, you know, clandestine missions to blow something up or to get somebody out. Like, I don't know. I think there's an awful lot of the original movies where there's not a lightsaber in sight. And you know what I'm saying? Now, obviously, that's a great lesson to some of the movies, right? The newer movies where like a lightsaber's getting popped out every 5 seconds. It's like, gotta unlock a door, get the lightsaber out. Gotta open a can of Coca-Cola, get a lightsaber out. It's like, all right, that's enough. So maybe that's a lesson in, you know, less is more. But I certainly think that means you can have some really great gameplay without lightsabers. Yo, a 12 spot from I'm the One Who Knocks. As a diehard Star Wars fan, Episode 4 launched in the late 70s. Outlaws is my most anticipated game of 2024 with another really pretty main character. Hopefully they don't screw it up with bugs and microtransactions. Thanks for the 12 spot. Yeah, I'll have a really hard time playing this game since apparently I'm offended by pretty characters, you know, according to the incels of the internet. Like, I'll do my best to play this game and get over the fact that they have the main character is good looking. I'll try to look past that, guys. For you, I'll push through my own pain for you. This game is going to have to earn my trust. Like, it looks good, but like 95% of my love for Star Wars is Force or Jedi related. Like, I don't mind if that's your preference. Like, if your preference is, dude, I'd much rather play a Star Wars game where, You have a lightsaber. I mean, I'll be honest with you. My least favorite thing to do in a Star Wars game is get into a space battle. I don't vibe with space battles. I don't vibe with dogfights. I didn't like it in No Man's Sky whenever I had to do it. Never been a big fan of it. Like, my older brother loved X-Wing versus TIE Fighter. I remember playing it. I liked it a little bit. I remember liking Descent, if you remember that game. That game was really the best with a joystick. And then there was the game Forsaken on the Nintendo 64. Like, I've never been huge on flying around. Like, I prefer the action-adventure, the shooting, the running around, the hopping on a speeder. Like, that to me is where I'm loving the vibe of the game. Like, just the feel of the game. So for me, I don't need a lightsaber, but I understand why somebody might say, oh, I would much rather play a Star Wars game with a lightsaber, because I'm the same way when it comes to flying around in the ships. It's like, I would much rather play a Star Wars game and have my boots on the ground. So I get where people are coming from. J-Dog with 24 months in a VIP. Y'all better smash that like button, he says. Rogue Squadron on GameCube is still the best Star Wars game ever. Yeah, I just never got down with games like that. I always preferred to play like The Force Unleashed, or there was the Star Wars game on the Nintendo 64 where you played like kind of like a Han Solo-like character. The game looks tactical, says Lobo. I'm excited for it. Yo, good morning, Ginger. Shadows of the Empire Boba Fett Slave 1 fight was a lot of fun. I think in this game, I'll be okay with the space battles because they're not the only thing. Like, that's not the whole game. Yeah, Dash Rendar. Yeah, that game. It's not the only thing. Like, space battles in a game like this, okay, I can get down with shooting some TIE fighters, you know, maybe getting in a couple of space fights. I'm totally fine with that, but I don't want to do that the entire game. Lono, thanks for mentioning X-Wing versus TIE Fighter. Yeah, I remember X-Wing versus TIE Fighter and just the strategy of double shields in the front, double shields in the back, shields all around. Like, there was so much to it. It was actually really, really solid as a game. And in some respects, I really do feel like X-Wing versus TIE Fighter was kind of ahead of its time. Like, it was very much charting into new territory that likely set the stage for games like Descent and others, where you created a three-dimensional space for ships to fly around in and get in fights and shoot at each other. I believe it was X-Wing versus TIE Fighter games being so heavily based on dogfights and space battles as a sim that I can't enjoy most newer space fighting games. They're too arcadey. Yeah, it was more of a simulation. You were managing all the different aspects of your ship instead of just fly around and shoot, right? Yeah, Star Wars Shadows of the Empire. That's the name of the Nintendo 64 game. Shadows of the Empire with Dash Rendar. Yeah, that was the one where, you know, whenever he got hit, my personation is something that I know Derek loves. You know, whenever you would get hit. I remember there was a level and you were standing on a platform and stuff would hit you in the shins if you didn't jump right. And you were like, oh! Like, it was like... it was so loud. It wasn't like a ugh or like a ugh. It was like a oh. It was like immediate, just scream out in animalistic pain from like the most minor of, you know, you get shot with a blaster or your shins get hit, you know, while you're on a mission. That was a good game though. It really, really was. I remember loving Shadows of the Empire. I remember I played it so much. I played it so much. Yeah, that IG-88 fight was so hard. I played Shadows of the Empire so much that whenever I would watch Star Wars, I would be like, that's the song. Like, you'll hear music from the Star Wars universe, and you're like, oh, that was in Shadows of the Empire, like, all of the time. Yeah, the train level. Exactly. The train level. Oh, man. I remember fighting the Walker. Do you remember fighting the AT-ST? Good night. That was so scary. Shadows of the Empire is the second best Star Wars game ever. It was good. It was a really, really good game. They nailed the aesthetic. I remember being in, I remember this so distinctly, playing Shadows of the Empire, and they had those, those boxes, those cubes. It's like a 4x4 cube that also has like it looks like 4 cubes turned into 1 cube, right? And they're like dark blue and they're everywhere. I remember seeing those all over the place in Shadows of the Empire, and then I noticed them in the movies. I never noticed them before, But because I had played Shadows of the Empire, I ended up noticing them in the movies. I thought that was really cool that they took the time, like the art team took the time to pull things directly from the movies and put them in. I love the Star Wars movies more, but I did like Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. Right, there's a ton of KOTOR fans out there. You know, KOTOR is allegedly still coming. Now we're hearing that it's good, it's in the right hands. But yeah, there it is, the AT-ST fight in that room. Oh gosh, I remember those doors. Man, games back then, jetpacking across the canyon to fight the AT-ST and then fighting Slave One. Yeah, there were really, really good moments in Shadows of the Empire. And that proves, Shadows of the Empire proves that Star Wars Outlaws can work. You don't need a lightsaber. You don't need force powers. You don't. You can totally play. You can totally play a Star Wars game without those things, and you can have a good time. You know, I actually like that. I like the idea that they're going to make a game. Obviously, like there's the Mando game, Mandalorian game, Mandor. You know what I'm trying to say. The Wampa in the base on Hoth. KOTOR isn't in the right hands. Saber Interactive isn't that good either. I don't even pay any attention to it at this point. It's gone from they're making it, they're not making it, this company's making it, no, that company's not making it, this company's making it. I don't even care anymore. That passing through that many hands, that project might as well be dead. If it ever comes to market, a Mando game before Mando, yeah, I mean that'd be cool. Although I guess Mandalorian, you could end up with a darksaber, so that you could end up with a form of a lightsaber. You know, I don't know. Wasn't the Mando game canceled? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. I was just saying that I'd be happy if a Mando game came out. I wasn't meaning to say it was still coming. Sorry. Mandor sounds like a He-Man character. Yeah. Look out, here comes Mandor. Star Wars Republic Commando did a similar thing where you played as a clone trooper. I don't think there are any lightsabers. It's called Tales from Mos Eisley Cantina. Had to look up the exact thing because I forgot what it was. I still wanted to play Tales from the Galaxy's Edge on my PSVR 2 because I've heard really good things about that Star Wars game. And, you know, there's a new, guys, if you're just tuning in, there's a Star Wars Outlaws story trailer today, and we will be watching it together, okay? It goes live, and it says it goes live in 106 minutes. So it goes live in, you know, what, an hour and 40? Yeah, that's right. That's right. That makes sense. It's going to go live at noon. So we'll go over a little bit early. We'll get everybody ready. We'll kind of hang out. We'll kind of talk. We're talking right now. Let me give you the too long didn't read about why I'm concerned about Star Wars Outlaws, okay? There's a worrying pattern with Disney right now when it comes to Star Wars, just in general, okay? Now, there was a leak today. The Star Wars Outlaws release date is August 30th of 2024. So this year, August 30th, that got leaked. One of the story trailers that were ready to go, it was in the description, and yeah, it's not in this description. So I think it was there's a Japanese version of the Ubisoft YouTube channel, I think, that had it in the description. So that means the trailer today should confirm that release date, right? Yeah, coming August 30th. So that's your release date. So that leaked today. But let me explain my concerns. So mainly my issue is that if you go back to when Jedi Fallen Order landed, it was sort of the beginning of, hey, we can get really great Star Wars games. And then there were all these leaks and rumors that were essentially saying there were a bunch of Star Wars games coming. There was the one from Massive, which that's what this is, okay? Star Wars Outlaws is the one from Massive. And there's Star Wars Eclipse, there's KOTOR Remake, and then there was Jedi Survivor, and then I think there's at least one other one that I'm forgetting. So basically, a bunch of Star Wars games were coming. And I remember around the time that happened, Disney went on record as to saying they wanted a new Star Wars game every 6 months. And I thought, That's ambitious, but that also sounds terrible because that's not how games come to market. You can't go to these studios and say, all right, I don't care what your pipeline's like. I don't care what your release schedule's like. We're wanting a new game every 6 months, okay? Yo, good morning, Feed. Good to see you in the chat. Guys, take a second while I'm giving you a recap of my position. Take a second and smash that like button. It helps the video find more people. More people are piling into the stream. Welcome on in. We're discussing it. We are going to watch the new trailer together that happens in about an hour and 40 minutes. I'm explaining why I am concerned about the game. So when Disney said that, I thought, oh, brother, that is not a good sign. That sounds like corporate level nonsense. That sounds like a company that's not worried about a game coming to market and being good and being highly reviewed and critically acclaimed. They're just trying to push things into the market. As we have seen, evidenced by the way they've handled the Star Wars television shows. You know, you get something as great as Mando, and you get something as great as Andor, and then you get a pile of heaping, steaming garbage like Obi-Wan, and then Book of Boba Fett's sort of in between garbage and good because it's got like 3 Mando episodes baked inside of it. So the point is that Disney, not just with Star Wars, by the way, they've done the same thing with Marvel. They've been pushing cadence over quality, which is something I've always told you guys is a very, very bad idea. Now, the good news is that Disney has since said, hey, we want to slow down on the cadence and the quantity, and we want to focus on quality. I hope they've taken a similar line of thinking with their Star Wars games, because when they said that, I told you guys my concern about that. I remember saying, this sounds insane. This sounds like a really bad recipe. And then Jedi Survivor releases. Now, I still to this day do not know why the director for Jedi Survivor said that they declined extra time. They could have taken more time, and that they didn't need it. They declined extra time. And, oh yeah, there's also a Ubisoft game, Star Wars game, that is reportedly similar to No Man's Sky. Isn't that this? I thought they said that Star Wars Outlaws was similar to No Man's Sky. Buffalo Wing Dave, when was that article published? Is that a new article or an older article? So Jedi Survivor comes out, and the director of the game's like, yeah, we turned down more time. And he said it was to avoid like a more competitive release window. Now, I don't know about you, but in my experience, being concerned about a release window being competitive is not something I've ever heard like game directors talk about. That's something the publisher and like the property owner typically is concerned with, because like they're running market research, they're trying to maximize sales and return of investment. Like, I don't know why you would be like, oh my gosh, we need to be concerned with, the director is going to be like, we need to be concerned about a competitive release window. And a director, knowing the state of Jedi Survivor, being like, well, we could have taken more time, but we opted not to. It's like, what the heck? And then game releases very clearly. Yeah, that's an old article. This is older, but it's not Outlaws. It seems, it says Ubisoft game will feature massive open world. Check. Spans across a whole galaxy. Check. Seamlessly travel across. Check. It's set to feature fully customizable character that will walk a path chosen by the player themselves. And check. Now, it's not fully customizable, but you can choose her path. You can go full scoundrel. I'm telling you, that's the game that this is the game that was described back then as being similar to No Man's Sky. Everything you just said, with the exception of the character being fully customizable, but walking a path chosen by the player, that's something that they have said you will do in this game. I'm fairly certain that article is talking about Star Wars Outlaws. The Green Monster with 7 months of membership. Didn't realize I was on a gifted member tier. Had to upgrade to show my love and support. Thank you so much for doing that, Green Monster. If you guys are paying for your own membership, make sure that you're at the $6 tier. The $5 tier is reserved for gifteds, which we need some more gifteds today. If we're going to hit that 2,500 goal for the week, you guys are going to have to go crazy. We did hit 2,300 last week, and you're going to get that reward this Friday night. We're going to be playing a rage game. Madam and I are going to be playing it together. Good to see you in chat, Skatinator. As someone who isn't super into Star Wars and knows very little about it, but I love action games, should I give Fallen Order and Survivor a chance? Yes. Yes. I wouldn't play them on PC, though. Survivor's in a terrible state on PC, but they got them to respectable performance on console. Jedi, Fallen Order, and Survivor, they're not just great Star Wars stories. They're really good games. You couldn't finish Fallen Order. The movement felt a bit too clunky for me. Also, I'm not a Star Wars guy. Yeah, I mean, I will admit the movement is a little clunky in the first game. Not necessarily a whole lot better in the second game, but it has its own feel. It didn't bother me. I liked it. I think it feels better in the second game, but it's not by some enormous margin. I think the player creator was dropped, which is sad. I think that's probably better though. I don't want to create my character in Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor. I want to play as the main guy. I want to play as Cal Kestis. Are Quantic Dream still making Star Wars Eclipse? I believe so, yes. Papa Glock says, hit that like. Thank you so much, Papa Glock. Hope everyone's having a great day. Remember to like the stream. Thank you, Adam Lee. What games were they worried about coming up against? Zelda. The interview that I read speculated that they didn't want to go up against Zelda, so they didn't want to bump the game any further than they already had. Which... okay. The animations are clunky, but the movement isn't. Yeah, I never really felt... I felt like the movement in the first game was a bit clunky, but it didn't bother me, right? Bloody Assault says, hey, Reforge, how are you today? I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. Thanks for reminding me of Cal's poopy diaper run. He does run a little bit like he just got off of a horse. What are you going to do about that? I thought it was fine. Being a Star Wars guy is the only reason I tolerated Survivor. Now, are you saying that because of the game itself, or Lobo, did you play it before they fixed all the problems? I put it down. I'm not finishing this. I was like, this is garbage. It ran so poorly. I stopped. I got the Kobo and I stopped playing. I was like, I was, maybe 2 hours into the game and stopped. 5 months later, they fixed performance mode, and it was like, okay, this is a different game. I can play this now. What do you think about the space gameplay? Will it be too much? Asks Swade. I'm not big on space gameplay, but it looks really good. It looks really smooth. What's good, Hellfire? Fam's good, man. Thanks for asking. I think you're right, says Dave in the Discord, since I found this quote. A new rumor indicates that Ubisoft Massive Entertainment Star Wars title will feature similar gameplay to that of No Man's Sky. Yeah, I think they just dropped the customizable character, Dave. Everything else in that paragraph that you put, it all tracks. It all tracks with Star Wars Outlaws. Performance issues galore, but I loved it too much. Yeah, I had to wait for the patch, Lobo. I couldn't play it. I was on Kobo. I got hitches. I got freezes. I got screen tearing. I was hoping to enjoy Star Wars Outlaws, but with what's happening, I don't know, because this would be a great game for a Star Wars fan like me. What are you referring to with what's happening? My concern for the game isn't based on anything we've seen. I think the gameplay, the cinematics, the vibe, like the game just has a feel. I think it all looks fantastic. Do you guys remember when we first watched the trailer? I kept telling you, I was obsessed with that cantina shot when she comes in and talks to the commando droid. I think it's a commando droid, right? Like he turns around and the lighting, I was like, it looks so good. Why does it look like that? Well, they did an interview months after that, and they said that they specifically went with like a filter on the game, and especially those scenes, to make it feel like the lenses that they used in the 1970s so that it looks and feels like Star Wars. I'm like, okay, all right, I see you. That's excellent. That means you care about the project at a deeper level. You're like, no, we want this to feel like Star Wars. That sounds like a Star Wars fan to me. Like, that sounds like a Star Wars fan that's a bigger fan than I am. They're like, let's go back and study the cameras they used, because there's just a certain quality to the lighting and the lens flares. And just, I don't know. I think it just looks excellent. I want to see how Kay Vess does as a character. I love Cal Kestis, so I want to see how she feels. I mean, I sort of already engaged with that a little bit ago when people are like, oh, she's just a female Han Solo. And I'm like, if it was a guy, would we be saying that? We'd be like, yeah, it's just a Han Solo ripoff. I happen to think that we wouldn't. No, nobody really has ever said that about the Star Wars game on the Nintendo 64, where you basically play as a Han Solo type character, and we all like that game. We all remember that game fondly. I don't think that that's a concern that I have at all. I think she looks like a great character. She looks like somebody right out of Star Wars. Her hairstyle, her jacket, her vibe. You know, the droid that's with her wearing like a trench coat, like he just gives off a great feel. Like I'm with it. I think the game looks like it's going to be really good. Again, my primary concern is the Disney effect. The Disney effect is my primary concern, because they wanted a new Star Wars game, you know, every 6 months. This scene here is what gives me zero concern about her character. This scene gives me no concern. This feels like something that I would watch this as a TV show. Like the way she handles this, the way she handles a chick from the Empire, I love this. Like, this is exactly the kind of tension that you want in Star Wars. Like, they did such a good job of this with, in Andor. You know, the beginning and the rumblings of the tension with the Empire and what they were doing. I dig it. Like, I'm just even little minute details like the clothing and the use of color and the use of lighting. Like, this looks and feels like I would want Star Wars to look and feel. It doesn't have this like overly clean, polished look like we got in the prequels, you know? Gritter with 35 months says, hey, good morning, Lono and chat. I'm able to do a little bit of work and lurk today. Glad to be a little back to how things used to be with my work and lurk routine. Good to see you, Gritter. Yeah, and you can bribe or not bribe here. So this gets into what we've heard is that you can choose your own path, right? She chooses not to bribe. Oh, see? Come on. Come on! The gun pull. It's great. I don't know, dude. You're like, it's a female Han Solo. Whatever. I like it. It feels like Star Wars to me, dude. Gives me Uncharted vibes, just the style of storytelling. I'm all for it. Yeah. Even just the vibe of the cantina as she's leaving, like just the and then the transition to outside. I think that, and I love the use of text as well. Like when she goes to the new location, she jumps to hyperspace and it pops up where she is, and the fact that she's wanted pops up. I think they've got a good feel here. I really do. I love the Imperial shuttle too that lands there. You know. Kind of foreshadowing, you know, this isn't good. The Empire's here, you know. That's what you want Star Wars to feel like. Yo, Joker Quinn gifts a member and takes us to 3 members on the day. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. You guys have been single gifting a lot lately. I greatly appreciate it, man. Those single gifteds add up so much. Finally, TV screens in Star Wars. I want to know when Ubisoft is going to post a chart for hardware requirements for the game. Last time they did that for Avatar, it was 2 months before release. Well, this game is now pretty much confirmed to be releasing August 30th. So that means you could probably get that in the middle of the summer. Also, Nvidia released a trailer, I think 3 weeks ago, indicating that the game is going to be launching with DLSS3 support, as well as ray tracing and reflex. I think is what it said. I agree. Get back to the Resistance paradigm. We don't always need lightsabers. That's what I'm saying. And look, I'm not a fan of space battles, but there's not another word to use. Like, the game just has a vibe. It just does. The UI especially, you know. Let me go to the other side here. The UI just has a feel. The colors they've chosen, the stylization, the fonts that they've chosen. Look at that. It just has this. It's like infused with the 80s, like synthwave album covers, and movie posters and just that time period. Like, they've really captured that. I really feel like they've done a good job. I remember playing in Control and loving the use of font. The big words would pop up right there. The broker completed, like, and the little lights are pulsating on it. Like, just the way that it comes up, just the way that the broker comes up and kind of flashes and goes zhink, and then the little lights are flashing. Like, I'm telling you, like, they just, attention to detail. That's exactly right, Lobo. Like, just little teeny touches here and here and here. And then when I read the thing about the, mimicking movie lenses from the 70s, it's like, they want this game to really, really land well. Like, that gives me a lot of confidence. I am worried. I'm worried about Disney. I'm worried about their impact on anything that releases from Star Wars. But the devs really seem to have put a lot of passion into this project. And that's exciting. That's why I was really upset with Jedi Survivor. They did such a great job with the story in Survivor, the twists, the turns, the writing, the voice acting. It's all so good, and it's like, it just needed to wait like 9 months to come out. It wasn't a bad game. It wasn't, and that was what was so frustrating. It was like, you guys made a great Star Wars story. You made a great Star Wars game. You just brought it to market before it was ready. The only thing I'm not feeling is the letterbox gameplay. I do wonder if they're going to do the same thing that Hellblade 2 is doing. Are they going to leave you in letterbox? Yeah. Cyberpunk was able to deliver a fantastic story and let you customize your character. Not sure why they couldn't let you do that the same here. I'll be honest with you. I think Star Wars works better with a predetermined story. Now, I know you're going to push back on KOTOR and the popularity of those types of games where, like, you chart your own story. I think there's room for that, but I think that's why I liked Jedi Fallen Order. That's why I like Force Unleashed. I want a story. Tell me a story in the universe. Bring me along on that journey. I don't need to make my own character. I don't. I'm not worried about that. I also don't know if anybody would be saying that. I'm telling you, the most commonly I hear, I wish I could make my own character, it's almost always when the lead is a girl. It's like, well, who the heck cares? I didn't play Star Wars Jedi Survivor or Fallen Order and think that. Jedi Fallen Order lands more strongly because it's a character in the Star Wars universe who survives Order 66. Like, that makes it more impactful than, like, oh, I just made some generic, Jedi. It's like, no, Cal Kestis is now canon. Like, you got to experience a story with somebody in the world of Star Wars, not just some guy that you or girl that you made in a character creator. Like, I'm gonna say it, outside of, like, super long tail RPGs, I think character creators are overrated. It's like, what they usually don't give you a ton of options. It's usually pretty simplistic, and it's like you don't even have that great of an impact on what your character looks like. You're better off with one character, one voice actor who has poured a lot of, substance into, bringing a character to life than, like, some generic recorded voice lines that you pick. You're like, okay, give me voice A or voice B or C or D, and then you've created your own character. Like, I don't necessarily think I agree with those. They're like, oh, I really wish I could make my own character. We at least need some customization. I mean, they let you do that with Cal. Yeah, I would love to be able to put her hair back in, like, a ponytail, or, have her wear, a different jacket or different outfit. Like, I loved that in Jedi Survivor. Come on, fam, use your imagination. What do you mean? About what? Spend 4 hours in character creation, 15 minutes in, you don't see anything because of armor. That's exactly right. So many games, you're like, oh, I got my eyes just right, and my eyebrows and my ears just right, and, like, 5 minutes into the game, you're, like, wearing a helmet. You're like, oh, my character looks so great. It's like, female leads, no problem, as long as it's written well and not just sticking to the patriarchy. I don't get that. I don't get that at all. She has a sidekick droid. She's got, like, a little furry companion. It just feels like a Star Wars story to me. You know what I'm saying? I think one of the best female characters in Star Wars needs to come back, in the third Jedi game, or give her her own game or prequel or something. I think Trilla in Jedi Fallen Order is one of the best Star Wars female characters we have since like Princess Leia, like and Ahsoka. Like, she's amazing. She's like my favorite. Character creation, but I agree, at a minimum, new outfits, really fresh through the playthrough. But here's what I was driving at, Lobo. If it's not a long tail RPG and you're trying to tell me a story, just give me a character that you have voice acted, so that way it feels more like there's more substance to it. If I'm just playing through a story and you let me create my own character and I pick between a couple of voice tones, there ain't no way you're going to get the same quality of storytelling and voice acting from that. You just aren't. I agree. Until now, I've been satisfied with what I've seen. Yeah, I think it looks like it's going to be solid. I don't think we're getting a girl boss game. I know people are tired of the girl boss thing because it's usually exaggerated and it just doesn't work. It doesn't work for the audience that they're trying to appeal to. It's like when someone plays a video game or goes to see a superhero movie or a comic book movie, you don't need to beat them over the head with it. Like, everybody loves Scarlet Witch. That's a great example, right? She's crazy strong. She's stronger than basically everybody else for the most part. Nobody was bothered by her as a character because it was written well. It was done well. It didn't feel cheesy, Agreed. Ignore my volatile comment. No, I knew. I didn't take it in a bad way, Lobo. There are a lot of great female characters in Star Wars. Lots of sci-fi. Yeah, I don't have a problem with it at all. I'm just glad that we're getting a game where they're focused on a larger experience. I'm really hoping they can pull that off, because I love Jedi Fallen Order and I love Jedi Survivor, but they're more like, I want to call them levels, if that makes sense. I know that's a weird word to use these days, but they create levels. And then because of the Metroidvania, you come back to a planet, which it's a level, right? You need this ability to get through that door or make that jump. And so it has that Metroidvania level feel to it, not like it's this huge open world. Not like the girls get it done moment versus like what you said, where Scarlet Witch is just an awesome character. Right, if you compare Scarlet Witch almost ripping Thanos to pieces to the, all the girls line up to run, together in Endgame. One is awesome, the other's pandering and stupid. Like, one feels genuine, like she's so strong, she's so angry, everybody needs to get out of the way. She could probably hurt all of us if we're not careful. And then it's like, how is she gonna make it? And it's like, she has help. And it's like somebody, I don't know, blew the whistle, like calling all women to the spot on the battlefield. It was just stupid. And I think there's your dividing line. In the same movie, in the same span of probably 10 minutes, you have a scene that's awesome because the character's awesome, and you have a scene that's stupid and contrived. Like, you've got to see the difference if you want to make a great story, and no one cares about the characters. Nobody cares. No one watched Black Panther and thought a thing about it. They're like, great story, great acting, great writing. Just amazing. It was so amazing that Killmonger's hairstyle's showing up everywhere. Like, that's how amazing Black Panther was. Like, nobody thinks about it because they're like, it's just a great story. Nobody questioned Scarlet Witch like gonna shred Thanos. No one questioned it because up to that point, it just felt genuine. It was like, oh no, yeah, that's her. She's a little crazy and she's incredibly strong. So I feel like Star Wars Outlaws could fall in a similar vein of just a great story, great character, great Star Wars. And put it in, make it canon. The Hutts are in here, so I would imagine they consider this canon. The Avatar game looked amazing, but it did flop, so I hope Star Wars Outlaws is what we wish for. Yeah, Happy Cloud Gamer, I said the same thing in my show opening monologue. I said, Avatar was beautiful, but it didn't do well. Now, I still maintain that Avatar was overly criticized, but the more I played it, the more I thought, okay, I get why people didn't vibe with this game. The format was just so familiar that the beautiful world and the graphics weren't enough. Like, they needed to iterate on gameplay I think you can have familiar scaffolding. An example would be Immortals Phoenix Rising. It has familiar systems in it, but the gameplay felt fresh and fun. So you can have familiar systems in your game. I'll give you an example. I'm 27. I'm close to 30 hours in Rise of the Ronin. I'm 27 hours in Rise of the Ronin. And you get the map open and you're doing the shrines and you're clearing out the encampments. That's all very familiar, right? Opening up a map and seeing bases that you need to clear, people that you go need to kill, and shrines that you need to visit. It's like, okay, that's all very familiar. But because of the combat, that to me feels fresh. I think this is why some of the Team Ninja guys aren't that impressed with Ronin, because they're like, we've played games with these systems before. The only game I've played with the stance switching was Ghost of Tsushima. So I'm loving Rise of the Ronin. Why? Because the familiar scaffolding kind of fades to the background if the gameplay feels fresh, if the gameplay feels awesome. So I think that's where Avatar felt short. It was like the scaffolding was familiar, but then the gameplay was too. It was like, go to this base, try to hide. If you can't hide, shoot everybody, right? You need these materials, go gather plants. Oh, you need these materials, go hunt this animal. And it's like, oh, yeah, I get it now. I get why people were like, it's just blue Far Cry. I still felt that wasn't fair. Garrett Green says, I never played Far Cry, but I finished Avatar and loved it. You see what I'm saying? Like, Garrett didn't have that familiarity, like, just baked in, right? I call it baked-in familiarity. When you go into a game and that familiarity is baked in, you're going to be more critical, I think, a lot faster. You're going to get to the second or third hour and you're going to be like, I've played this before, right? So that's where I'm worried with Star Wars Outlaws. It's like, please don't make the mistake that Avatar made, where your game is beautiful and you got space battles and speeder battles and you've got, bases that you've got to infiltrate and shootouts and decisions to make, and it better feel new. Now, from what I've seen, I actually think the combat looks really good. It looks fresh. It looks unique. It looks like, okay, I've not really ever played anything like that. Did Lono say scaffolding? Did I say scaffolding? I don't know if I emphasized the D as if it were a T. I might have done that. I didn't mean to. I speak fast, so sometimes words sound a little... My pronunciations can sound inconsistent because I talk fast. Yeah, scaffolding. You do kind of bounce off the D as a dental. Scaffolding. Scaffolding, 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 scaffolding. It's not a hard D, you know what I mean? Pause. I guess it depends, because people complain about bloat in Assassin's Creed or Horizon Forbidden West, but somehow don't complain about Ghost's bloat. Ghost combat is definitely the best out of them, but AC Valhalla combat. Ghost of Tsushima didn't feel bloated at all. I didn't hear that. I think that's a significant difference. I'm telling you, I think that's why Ghost of Tsushima is so good. It doesn't feel bloated. It's like the perfect amount. I never once pulled open the map in Tsushima and thought, oh, I got to do that again. Does that make sense? I feel like in Assassin's Creed, you know what it is? There's a density to Assassin's Creed games. It's like, shoom, like, oh, this town, hang on, let me zoom in on this town. Okay, I got this, and you go and you do all those things. And then you go to the next town and it's like, boom, and you see all the icons and you're like, it's just dense. It seems like it's all packed in there. The difference to me was Ghost of Tsushima, those things were there. I just felt like they were maybe spread out a little bit more. Like, I felt like the game and the map, it had breathing room. It doesn't feel like this dense, every new area, you've got the same 15 things to do all over again, and they're all jam-packed in this little town. I don't know. Maybe there's a science to that. Maybe there's a psychology to you know, it's okay to have this section of the map have a fox to find, bamboo shrine to find, climbing shrine to find, couple of bases to fight, and a duel, right? And you take those things and you go copy, paste, copy, paste, and like every section of the map gets those that batch of things to do. Well, since they're spread out and you sort of discover them, I wonder if psychologically that helps, that when you go into a game like Assassin's Creed, this is just my experience, I remember playing Origins, you'd get to a new town, then there's just this densely packed collection of icons of things I can do, but then also the world has icons as well, and it just feels like it's just too dense. Yeah, the combat in Tsushima is also excellent. Yo, Chris, thank you for renewing your membership. Welcome back in. Guys, if you haven't taken the chance to hit the like button, go ahead and do that. That helps my video find more people on YouTube. So take a second and smash that thumbs up. If you would like to talk in my chat, make sure and hit subscribe. We always love to meet new subscribers. Also, if you want to gift some members, we're going for the first 25 of the day. Every 25 members, I gift 5. And we are going for a big goal of 2,500 members. We hit 2,300 last week. So thank you guys so much for being here and supporting the channel. And we are currently talking about Star Wars Outlaws, why I'm kind of concerned given the history of Star Wars games as well as Disney's impact on Star Wars games. But we will be co-streaming the Star Wars Outlaws story trailer that debuts today. We're getting a new story trailer, and the Star Wars Outlaws release date was leaked today, August the 30th. One of the trailers, as it was scheduled, they accidentally put that in the description. Assassin's Creed Red is going to suck because of Ghost of Tsushima combat's the gold standard. I certainly think they have a pretty big hill to climb when they're making AC Red. I think they're going to be able to do it because you're going to play as a samurai and you're going to play as a ninja, and they'll be very distinct. Jin Sakai in Ghost of Tsushima is sort of both. He's sort of both. He's samurai and ninja, and I think having two distinct characters, two distinct playstyles, I think will actually help AC Red. 120 hours in Ghost. I think I'm in the 80s. You have to combine my PlayStation 4 version and my director's cut version, because I played a lot of the game. I think I beat the game or came very close to beating the game before the director's cut came out. And then the director's cut brought me back to the game and I completed it because I think I had to take a break from it because we were trying originally what we used to do. A lot of you don't know the history of this channel. Originally, what we used to do 3 years ago is we would come over to this channel and just do gameplay. We got the channel up to about 5,000 subscribers, and that's all we did. We would just come over and play a new game, and if I wanted to work through a game, we would try and do it here. And shortly after we started doing that, we had to actually move the live show over here. Because we were no longer covering a single game, we had switched to variety coverage. So the history of this channel is actually just a gameplay channel, and that was around the time I was trying to play through Ghost of Tsushima, and then a bunch of new things required my attention, so I had to take a break from the game, and then the director's cut came out, and that brought me back, and I finished it. It's like one of my all-time favorite games. And, you know, Star Wars Outlaws could be up there to me with Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor because I think Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor are two of my all-time favorite games as well. They're also some of my all-time favorite Star Wars stories, up there with like Andor, Rogue One, and Empire Strikes Back, the greatest Star Wars stories that we have. And I feel like Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor are right up there. I would love those to find their way, you know, into the TV shows somehow. Having the same or similar activities is fine as long as you're making sure the locations feel unique from each other and don't just blend together. Yeah, I mean, sometimes there'll be some blending, I think, that's unavoidable, but I do think you're right. If every town and every little, you know, encampment that you have to fight feels the same as the last, you know, you want to work against that. I actually think Rise of the Ronin's doing a very good job with that. They put a lot of verticality, cliff sides, you get on rooftops, you know, that really helps for the stealth and the assassinations. And then if you're kind of clumsy, all of a sudden you're kind of cornered in a dojo or in an open area, and you got a big guy to fight and like some little, you know, some little regular guys to fight. So I came here to chew bubblegum and like this video. I'm all out of juicy fruit. Yo, what's good? What's good, Vapor? Good to see you. Phantom Blade Zero looks crazy, but looks a little too good to be true. Yeah, I'm kind of curious how that's going to translate. I think they're another mobile game creator who has decided to come over to console land. That's the same is true of Stellar Blade, and Stellar Blade I think felt fantastic as far as the combat went. It's a little different. There's some clunkiness to it, but once you adjust, I think it feels very good. I'm just saying for me though that the bloat were similar. I don't say that if that was a bad thing though. It's all samey after a while. I actually don't agree with you. I don't think the bloat is similar at all. Well, what Assassin's Creed are you comparing it to is the real question. Because Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Valhalla, I don't think Tsushima's even close to the bloat of those games. Now, I'd have to go back and look at the map in Assassin's Creed Origins and like brush up on my familiarity with it. But even that game I felt like was far more bloated in its map and content than Tsushima. Valhalla, no, Ghost of Tsushima is nowhere nearly as bloated as Valhalla. That's not even remotely true. No. Like, that's not a matter of opinion. I think we could mathematically debunk that. No. Valhalla is an absolute monster. It's a monster. Tsushima is a good, big game, but it ain't that big, dude. Valhalla's like in its own category of size and bloat. I'm telling you, Tsushima's like the perfect, really, really the perfect mix. I don't feel that game is deserving of the word bloat, like, at all. I don't agree with that. I don't even know if it's a matter of agreeing or disagreeing. I think you could prove that Tsushima's not as bloated. Valhalla's nuts. People start a gifted train. You get to 25. I'll be Agent of Chaos. Rich Rod's asking for a gifted train, and VR Tigo is like, I'll oblige you. So VR Tigo is going to take the first shot at a member train. Gifts a member. It goes to Trap House Games. Thank you so much. Every time you guys gift a member, it pushes a little bit closer to the goal. And there are so many people here. A single train could take us way farther than some of the big bombs that guys drop. You know, we went on a 26 member train the one day. Thank you, Dylan, for upping your membership, renewing your membership, and getting that red badge. I appreciate you so much. And when you guys become a member, gifted members get into the Discord, gifted members get into some of the content. But when you pick the full membership, the $6 membership, that gets you into our behind-the-scene writers room. You get to see how the shows are made, how we you know, kind of chart everything. Me and my producer hop on the phone. You get to hear that. You get to see me do Friday night streams where my wife will play a game or we'll play a game together. She just played Stellar Blade this last week. Even if you become a member right now, you can go back and watch those past broadcasts. The haikus are bloat in my opinion, but I don't think the game itself is bloat. Yo, Patrick Q comes in and adds to the train and takes us to 5 out of 25. Now, so you guys got to hurry, because 5 out of 25, somebody might drop a 20 bomb. You're going to want to hurry, because these big boys like to show off. I don't know if they're hanging out today or not. I've not seen any of them talking. Sometimes they're lurking in the shadows. I don't agree that the haikus were bloat, Eugene, because there weren't that many of them. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's a lot. It didn't feel like there were that many of them. And I felt like they added to the vibe. I felt like they were a thematic thrust for the game that made it feel so. Joker Quinn with a gifted member, and DK Bager with a gifted member takes us to 7 members on the day. The single train is alive and well. Your longest single train was 26, and right now you guys have 4. Keep it going. Thank you so much. Zelda Hart hits 14 months of membership. Says Writer's Room is 100% worth it. And don't forget Reforge Roast. Thank you for that. Listen, yeah, the members will tell you it's well worth upgrading or picking the $6 member tier. It supports me directly, and it costs you $6 a month, okay? If you guys are here every day, you're listening, you're lurking, and you enjoy the show, this show is made possible by your sponsorships. We are not a channel that can do this full-time without you. Like, if you look at channels of this size, They're not streaming full time. That's not an option that they have. They probably have a traditional job. You guys make this possible. You essentially are the sponsors of the show. So thank you so much. A single from Siegemaster, a single from Dude with the Drum Set takes us to 9, and a 5-bomb comes in from Ravenstorm, and a 5-bomb comes in from James Baker and takes us from 9 to 19 just that fast. You guys can do a train of 5s. Those add up as well. I love seeing somebody with a white badge gifting members. They're catching the vision of what we do here. Thank you so much, James Baker, for doing that. And a 10-bomb comes in from MASH, and a 5-bomb comes in from Creature. That takes us to 29, but then that takes us to 34. And just like that, we've screamed past the goal of 25. The next milestone is 50. I gift 5 every 25. That's why we roll it forward, because every 25 I give 5. And yes, that makes me an e-beggar. Skylar coming in with a gifted member. Thank you so much. That takes us to 35 members on the day. I gifted over 4,000 members to the channel last year as part of our initiative here to constantly pay it forward and give people a sample of the content. So apparently gifting over 4,000 members to your channel makes you an e-beggar. Here comes some more of that. Here's the 5 that I owe you. You guys are the best. And Rich Rod gifts a member and takes us to 36. Thank you so much, Rich Rod, bringing the count a little bit higher. I appreciate you, dude. There's the 5 that I owe. If you guys get a gifted member, plug into the Discord. You can connect with people in there to play Helldivers. You'll never miss a show. YouTube's not the greatest at always putting me on your homepage. So remember, if you don't see me on your homepage, check your subscriber tab on YouTube. I should be there. I stream Monday through Friday. But you can also use the Discord. We put announcements in there whenever I go live. And if you want to upgrade to get into more of the content, it's only $1 to upgrade from the $5 member to the $6 member. And we have basically now a bunch of people have paid for you to get access to our Discord as well as some of our extra content. Yo, good morning, Melrose Mike. How are you? You're playing Elden Ring right now? Nice. What did Mash say? Wait, Creature listens? He does sometimes, yeah. He does. You know, sometimes he's working. You know, sometimes he's editing videos and he can't listen to the show. He's got, headphones on, but he's listening to something else. Yeah, and there's other ways to support the channel as well. Coffee drinkers, check out reforgeroast.com. If you're listening to the audio version of this elsewhere and you're a coffee drinker, that's not a sponsor. When you go to reforgeroast.com, you are supporting me. That's my website. That's my coffee. You'll get a little thank you note for my kiddos if you order it. You're basically supporting family business. So thank you guys so much who continue to order or try out Reforge Roast. We appreciate it very much. You've never seen Creature Gift before? He's done it before. He doesn't do it very often, but he's done it before. He doesn't need to. You guys are typically going crazy. Rich Rod says, good train, everyone. Yeah, that was a good train. That was a good train. Single Gifted got a little messed up. Teacher playing Star Wars. What's this music? Kid, Star Wars. Who wrote it? Crickets. Yeah! That's my girl! That's my girl! My daughter is at a thing, and there's all these students there with her, and one of the people running the event was playing Star Wars music, and the kids, she's like, what music is this? And the kids are like, Star Wars. And she's like, who wrote the music? And none of the kids knew, and my daughter was like, John Williams. I'm like, that's my girl, dude. That's awesome. My kids are actually really cultured with music. Like, they know lots of different composer names, and they'll recognize if something is, Bach, or if something is Mozart. My son listens to like Yo-Yo Ma every night when he's like relaxing to go to bed. Like, that's awesome that she knew, though. She remembered the composer's name. That's cool. That's relevant to today's topic, Star Wars Outlaws. Detective Seeds, good to see you. He says, how large do you think exploration will be? Will it be more open world, side quests, exploratory setup, or will it have a linear aspect until completion, which opens up the open world vibe? Yeah, I think typically they do that. They don't let you just immediately go out and just start, exploring the open world. Because, like, it wouldn't surprise me if It wouldn't surprise me at all if the game opens up with the sequence that we have seen, and then she's kind of on the run. Well, when you go back to that planet, that's going to be an element, I'm assuming, that you have to interact with, like the fact that there's like a bounty on you or something. Like, I'm just curious if that's going to be something that they have you sort of interacting with. Oh, and I'm sorry, it's not open area. These are open world environments. Like, they're supposedly huge. You know, they're huge. And I think they went for how many planets? It's like 5, I think it's 5 planets. And that's why they went with 5 planets, because they're going to be actually large open world environments. So they couldn't give you, 20 planets to go to. So I think some people saw 5 planets and they were like, oh my gosh. I'm thinking open zone. No, I believe there was an interview, Star Wars Outlaws, open world details. I thought they did an interview about this. Let me try and find it. Maybe I'm misremembering. All the release date stuff is taking over the news feed. IGN's got something here. Let's take a peek here. Okay, the trailer, release window, story, locations, and map size. Star Wars Outlaws open world is spread across multiple handcrafted planets of manageable sizes. The planets, final number TBA, could be equivalent to 2 or 3 zones of Assassin's Creed Odyssey, according to Garrity. As the director noted, this is a crude analogy as the regions in Odyssey range in size, though it should be taken to mean the planets will not be near endless areas filled with procedurally generated content. So, yeah, they're not endless, but they're big. From the sounds of it. I mean, if a planet is the equivalent of 2 or 3 zones in AC Odyssey, that's not open zone like Final Fantasy. That's huge. Like, that means you just kind of go around and do whatever you want to do. The planets in Outlaws will adhere to Lucasfilm's 80-20 rule in location design, 80% familiar, 20% alien or fantastical. Garrity explained how Massive designed the version of Tatooine. We start off with the biome, in that case, Southeast African biomes as an inspiration, and then you put a twist on it to make it feel like a bit alien. If you think of the first shots, maybe not the first shots, but the first shots of Tatooine, beautiful, recognizable architecture, 2 suns, having this huge mountain. Okay, so he's just talking about the art direction. So, yeah, that doesn't sound like open zone. That sounds like open world. Like, that sounds like a handcrafted open world map per planet that is a pretty good size. 2 or 3 regions from a game like Odyssey, that's pretty big per planet. That's pretty big. I don't want it much bigger than that. I don't want to land on a planet and have a whole new, like, literal, a whole new world, right? A whole new... I'm just kidding. I don't want that, dude. No. I think that, as they say, that's manageable. It's like, okay, you got 3 roughly, like, regions from other games. Like, you've got that size. I think that's manageable. Is crafting going to be there? I don't know if they've said anything about crafting. Yeah. I don't know if they've said anything about crafting. But, yeah. Yeah, if you're thinking open zone like Final Fantasy, yeah, it doesn't sound like it's going to be like this linear, sort of curated, crafted, open zone thing. It sounds like it's going to be a little bit bigger than that, Hopefully we can climb those mountains. Yeah, maybe. Jump out later. All right, see you later, Happy Cloud. As I reach to type, if he starts singing, sorry, I couldn't resist. I didn't even sing that much, Zuby. That was like very, very minimal, I want to secretly take voice lessons and just one day, like, surprise you guys. They're like, wait a minute, that was actually pretty good. Like, I have decent enough, like, pitch and tone that I feel like I could take some voice lessons. And nobody would expect it. They're like, what the heck? Like, Lono can sing? What's happening? You think that's too big, Eugene? I don't think it's too big. I think like, look at how far she travels on the speeder. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you watch that speeder sequence and then you determine that's too big, here's my issue with that. Then this is just some highly scripted race. And I don't like that. I would rather this be a genuine, just massive space that I'm zipping across and getting in fights, because if not, as I said, it's just some scripted fight. You can even tell by the radar up at the top and how enemies like flash and she drives past them like that was like a little outpost or something like that. Like, I'm glad this is an open world. I wouldn't want that. I don't like scripted fights like this. Like, I remember the fights, the car and traversal fights you could get in Mad Max. They were so fun. Mad Max is criminally underrated. Such a good game. Look how far she's traveling, though. Like, this doesn't work if it's just open zone. You need a couple regions from a game like Assassin's Creed, like that amount of space for her to do what she's doing right here. A lot of travel that she's just done. She's still not to the cantina. She's still not there yet. This is scripted. The attack was scripted, but it's not a scripted area. It's not this linear on rails thing. She's in an open world. I understand it's part of a story mission, but there are plenty of story missions in games like this where there's a scripted chase and you got to chase these guys or you got to chase these people, but that doesn't mean that like that's all that was. That was a giant open world space that they built for that, and that's not all they built it for. It's also explorable. You can tell she drives past like an outpost and the enemies. Here it is. This is just my absolute favorite sequence right here. Just that shot right there. I just love it. I absolutely love it. It's the lighting, the reflections on the cups, him, the way the color plays in the shot, the lens flare on her head. See how the light from back here creates this fat band lens flare, and then you get the same thing from the background when he's standing there, right? You get these fat beams like this straight across. When she gets in the gunfight earlier and she's shooting her gun and they're shooting their guns, oh, it's so good. There's just a cinematic quality to it. I love it. I think it looks so nice. It does. Yeah, Mad Max was really good. I wish I would have had time to beat that one. That's another just enormous game. Like, you're not expecting it. You're like, goodness gracious, when's it going to end? Those are some impressive graphics. Going to look terrible at 30 FPS. Yeah, they're somehow going to manage to pull off something cinematic without it being 30 FPS. There's a reason why I don't play Assassin's Creed games. Oh, I mean, I don't have a hard time understanding your position. I understand it. It doesn't bother me. Now, I'll be honest with you. I was talking about this with Kirk in DM, and I have 27 hours in Rise of the Ronin. I want you to guess how much percentage I have in the story. Just take a guess. Am I 50, 60, 70, 80%? How far do you think I am in the main story at 27 hours in Rise of the Ronin? Just take a stab in the dark. Because when you have really big games, that is one of the concerns is, well, do I really want to stay in that world, that game, and that story for X number of hours? Like, how long? 13, too low. If it was at 13%, I would stop. Yeah, I've made it to Edo. I have. 32? No. Still too low. 15? No, I'm at 27 hours. 35? Yeah, you guys are still too low. 10%? No. I'll tell you. You guys are way off. 56%. 56%. So at 27 hours, I'm roughly halfway through the game. And if I continue to play side quests and complete the map the way that I've been playing, easily another 30 hours or so. It's basically a 60-hour game. So you just need to know. You need to know. Yeah, Lone Wolf, you were close at 60%. Yeah, 56. You need to know what you're signing up for when you play Rise of the Ronin. That's a big game. You're signing up for 50 to 60 hours minimum if you want to beat that game. Because you can't ignore the side quests. You'll get too weak. You won't be strong enough. You'll get your freaking head taken off. Like, even now, I started kind of beelining story missions, and I started catching up with the level of the game, because I was above the level of the game on the main quest. Like, I was like a 25, and the quests were like 19 and 20, and now I'm like a 26, and the game levels are like 20... no, I'm sorry. I'm a 26 28 or 26. I'm somewhere in there. And the game level's like 24 to 25. So the game's catching up to me. And so to me, that you got to know that. Because like I get to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm ready for the plane to be landed. My time limit is like when I hit the 25th hour, I'm ready for things to start coasting down and come to a finish. I typically don't want to play a single player game for that many hours unless I absolutely fall in love with it like the way that I did with Ghost of Tsushima, and like every night I just want to boot up and continue to move my way through the game. Ronin's close to that, but I still am kind of feeling like, my gosh, there's games coming out, man. I want to be able to play Stellar Blade. I'd like to go back to The Last of Us Part 2 remaster. It's goodness gracious. Knowing that I'm only about halfway through Rise of the Ronin, that's daunting. It's like, oh my word. Like when you're at my stage of life, it's like I can play for an hour, sometimes 2 hours a night. That's just where I am. It's like last night I was helping my daughter write a paper on like Davy Crockett. It's like I'm doing that. I'm not playing video games all hours of the day. I have responsibilities. So it's like when a game tells me, hey, this is a 60-hour game. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. If I diligently play 2 hours every single day, that's still going to take me 30 days. That's a month. Now, some people might think that's fantastic. I struggle with that. I do. I struggle with like maintaining interest in a game beyond 25 to 30 hours, unless it's a game I absolutely love, like Tsushima. Most games, when I get to that 25th hour, I'm like, okay, I've had my fill. I'm ready to go and I'm ready to go to another game now. I'm ready to be in another world. Have you considered ignoring those responsibilities, just playing video games instead? Yeah. King of the Wild Frontier. She came up with the name of the paper, King of the Wild Legends, because all the stories about him are so legendary. They're obviously fake. So, Davy Crockett, something about a hat. He's King of the Wild Frontier. Yeah, he had the hat, the famous hat, and, apparently rode a bear all the way to DC. Had a pet panther. Yeah, it's nothing but legend. It's absurd. I'm happy for a 50 to 60 hour game, but anything beyond that's a bit too much for me. 50 to 60 hours to me, when I was able to play games like I previously could, and I could plug away and put in 3 to 4 hours, do you see how it changes? Well, 3 to 4 hours, it's like, oh, I'll have this beat in 2 weeks. That's like just right. But when you can only play for 1 to 2 hours a night, I'm like, that's a month minimum. I might not even be able to make it in a month, because some days I can't play. Some days I can only play for an hour instead of 2 hours. So it's like, goodness gracious. I was like, when you're at a stage of life and you can plug away and be like, yep, 3 to 4 hours a day, a 60-hour game is no big deal. By the end of that week, you're halfway through the game. By the end of that week, you're somewhere between 21 and 28 hours. You've gotten to the halfway mark after a week. Well, that's great. I'm just not in that place in life. It's like, oh, I can't do that. And I don't know about you, but maintaining interest in a game for more than a month, if it's not live service especially, if it's just a single player story, I think that's challenging. Why? Well, new games come out. I want to play Stellar Blade when it comes out. I want to try out the Sea of Thieves beta. I want to see how it feels on PlayStation. Like, there's so many things I want to do. It's like, oh man, I'm going to have to plug away here. I beat Prince of Persia and I loved it. I wanted to beat Hi-Fi Rush. I put Hi-Fi Rush down for Rise of the Ronin. And it's like, I just don't have time. And I don't know what the completion time average is for Hi-Fi Rush. I think it's around 20, isn't it? How long to beat? I don't even know. So I understand when someone looks at Star Wars Outlaws and they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, around 11 hours to beat Hi-Fi. Oh, that's actually pretty fast. They're saying 15 to 20. Okay. I could probably do that in about 12. I think I played it for about 2. It means I only got about 10 hours left. I still want to beat that game before the year is up. I'm trying to beat more games this year. It's just tough. The schedule doesn't allow for it sometimes. Don't forget about the times where you have an hour and there's an update or two. Usually those updates, thank goodness, I'm in a position where I have really fast internet, so those updates usually download fairly quickly, 10 minutes or so. Rebirth's way too long, great game, but too long. What are your guys' thoughts on that? Does that dictate whether or not you buy a game? Does that dictate whether or not you buy a game? When you're like, oh, I heard that game. Like when I said that about Rise of the Ronin. Or if you guys hear this about, Star Wars Outlaws. You're like, oh, 5 planets. They're all pretty big. If the completion time for Star Wars Outlaws is somewhere between, 40 and 60. There's going to be a full trailer for Joker 2 today. My gosh. Does that dissuade you from purchasing at all? Or are you like, no, I'll buy it, I'll get my fill, and then you'll move on? Yes, no, never, depends on the game. At this point, I'm intimidated by games with large time demands. Yeah. Captain Steve thinks that Star Wars Outlaws might be a cringe fest. He says, kind of wish we could create our own character in an open universe Star Wars game. And if it had multiplayer aspects, that'd be uber cool. But this, I don't know. Want to see more? Yeah, I just continue to feel like people only say that when it's a woman. Like, they don't say that when it's a guy. Nobody said that about Cal Kestis. When you guys saw the first trailer for Jedi Fallen Order, where you're like, ah, man, I wish I could create my own character. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't get it. I really don't. I've never looked at Returnal or Tomb Raider or Horizon Forbidden West or Hellblade. Or even the second Last of Us. I've never been like, yeah, man, I wish I could just create my own character, bro. Like, it just never has bothered me. It's never bothered me. Some of my favorite games. My favorite game of all time you play as a woman. Hellblade's my favorite game, like, of all time. Right up there with Tsushima and Returnal. Plays a girl in Returnal. Sekiro. I don't get it. You go to my top 5 and 2 of the games, I think. Maybe more. I think it is just 2. It's only cringe as any other Star Wars property. I don't know. I didn't see any cringe in the trailer. I like how she handles the chick from the Empire. I think it's dope. I want to experience the stories multiple times over years, and long games don't facilitate that. Yeah, see, I'm not even in that category, Eugene. Not anymore. Not anymore. I played Jedi Fallen Order a second time immediately. I increased the difficulty. That was really fun. And I did like a 200% playthrough of Batman Arkham Knight because I just absolutely loved that game. But I don't know if a lot of these games, I don't know if I've ever been like, especially now with where I am, like, I'm not, my only temptation is Ghost of Tsushima, on lethal. I knew that you loved Hellblade, didn't know it was your GOAT. Yeah, the more I've thought about it, the more I've talked about it over the years, I think it's probably one of the best games ever made. I have a lot of reasons for that, but that's part of the reason why I'm so invested in the sequel. My main concern isn't the fact that she's a woman. After the awful Disney Star Wars films, I'm afraid she could turn out to be another Rey character. I get more Andor vibes from the trailer for Star Wars Outlaws, and I feel like Andor gives me hope that that won't happen. I wasn't even that bothered by Rey in the first movie. I've argued with people for years that they're like, oh, she's a Mary Sue. I'm like, go back and watch New Hope. You don't know what the frick you're talking about. She's an identical parallel to Luke, intentionally by J.J. Abrams. So you sound silly. Now, the rest of the movies, sure, we can get into a debate about how, the second movie ruined everything that JJ set up. JJ basically does like this hat tip to Star Wars and says, here you go. Now you can tell a new story. I honored the past. I set things up in a very safe way. It's like one of the safest movies ever made. And then everything gets screwed up in the second movie. Like, if you watch that movie and you're like, she's a Mary Sue, and you go watch New Hope, you just look silly. She's identical. I mean, she's an identical parallel to Luke. It's so similar that, and if anything, she comes from a harder background than he does. It's just silly. That whole debate is silly. I get so tired of that. It's like, you clearly have never watched New Hope if you think that. Why didn't he direct all three? Because Kathleen Kennedy is stupid. I have no problem with her in Force Awakens. Yeah, she's totally fine in Force Awakens. I don't think the character is a problem in that first movie. It's everything that happens after. And that has nothing to do with Rey. And that has nothing to do with, oh, she's a Mary Sue. It's like, no, you had 3 different directors because Kathleen Kennedy is dumb. And everybody wants to blame Rey. And it's like, everyone goes, oh, she's a Mary Sue. It's like, no, we had 3 directors and we had one harebrained director in the middle that was like, I'm going to detonate everything. You know, every story arc, all the foreshadowing, all the setup. Just stick dynamite in all of it. And then they tried to piece it all back together in some hodgepodge mess in the 3rd movie. I don't know if JJ ever sticks around for any franchise. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. That's why I'm concerned about Star Wars Outlaws. Not because I'm concerned they're going to give me a Mary Sue character. I'm concerned because we got Obi-Wan and then we got Andor. Oh, we got Rogue One, Empire Strikes Back level Star Wars. Some of the best Star Wars ever created in Andor. I will fight you in the street on this. Some of the best Star Wars ever created in Andor, and we got some of the worst in Obi-Wan. Do you want to know why? Because Disney was pushing for cadence over quality. Why is Mandalorian so good? Because fans of Star Wars and good directors and good writers helped to create it. What did we get in Obi-Wan? You got Bush League directors and writers that have terrible Rotten Tomato scores on everything they've created. Why? Because they were in a hurry. Just get somebody to make this. Just throw money at people right now. Just get people hired and get this out the door. And it's utter refuse. That's why when they said, we want a new Star Wars game every 6 months, I'm like, here we go. That's why Jedi Survivor came out and was clearly not ready. So when I look at Star Wars Outlaws, I'm like, you better not do that again. And the real shame of it is that Star Wars Jedi Survivor is fantastic Star Wars storytelling. It's a wonderful game. It just needed another 9 months. That's all it needed. It needed another 9 months in the oven. You know, not even a year. It just needed some tender love and care. Ahsoka to me was better than Book of Boba Fett, but it wasn't as good as Mando, and it wasn't as good as Andor. Andor's S tier, Mando's A tier, Ahsoka's B tier, Obi-Wan is F. It's a fail. Book of Boba Fett's a C, a weak C. I thought Ahsoka had really good parts. The poor guy that passed away, Ray, what's his name? Oh gosh, Ray Stevens? I forget his name. Oh my gosh. He was wonderful. What a sad thing that is to lose him. Obviously it's primarily sad as a person, but as an actor, he brought such an amazing presence to the dark side. I was very pleased with him. We haven't had somebody like that in a while that brings this just that you almost can hear that Emperor's music, that that foreboding. Anytime he was on screen, I was like, this guy is magnificent. And I was really, really bummed. It was like, oh my gosh, we haven't had something like that in such a long time. So I thought Ahsoka was fine. I thought it was a B, which is good. No, not Ray Liotta. What's his name? Ray Park? What's his name? Ray Stevenson? Yeah, Ray Stevenson. Yeah, he passed away. Yeah, he passed away last year in May. It was super sudden, you know. It was super sudden, and people are wanting them to get Liev Schreiber to take his place because they feel like he could look very similar. I think they could get somebody like Liev Schreiber and they could deform him because he's going to go do something, and we know the dark side can deform you and make you look really weird, right? We've seen that with Palpatine. We saw that with Snoke. So, and a 5-bomb from I'm the One Who Knocks. 5 more members coming in, putting us at 41 members on the day. Thank you so much for doing that. Super close to another 5-bomb from me. How can you think Kenobi's F tier? What's in that mug that you're drinking? Obi-Wan Kenobi as a TV show is one of the worst pieces of Star Wars content that has ever been created. It is utter refuse. There is a single scene that is amazing between Anakin and Obi-Wan. It's phenomenal, but it's like putting a bowling ball on top of a paper bag. It doesn't stand on anything. It's this heavy scene of gravity and emotion and impact, and it's remarkable, and there's nothing for it to stand on because everything up to that point is terrible. It is terrible. It's not just bad Star Wars. It's a bad TV show. It was directed by and written by buffoons. Absolute buffoons. And a gifted from Stone Spire. Thank you so much. Like, you take one of the best story arcs in cinema history, the corruption of Darth Vader, and you take it and you create this amazing scene between Obi-Wan and Anakin. You close the chapter on that book of you didn't kill Anakin Skywalker, I did. Just absolutely wonderful. I am thrilled for Hayden Christensen because he's getting a redemption arc that he deserves as an actor, as a man. Like, it was so hard on him what happened with those movies. I love his redemption arc. I love it. I get emotional when I think about it because that must have been terrible for him to go through. And the look on his face and the love he's receiving, I'm thrilled for him. Like, what he got to do in Ahsoka was so freaking cool. But my gosh, Obi-Wan is terrible. It's written and directed by buffoons. Like, all of a sudden, now you've ruined canon. Princess Leia, apparently, one of the most pivotal parts in her life is her interacting with Obi-Wan Kenobi. And then when he dies in New Hope, she's like, sorry about your grandpa. I don't know who that was. You know, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're our only hope. You fought with my father in the Clone Wars. You also saved my life! But I forgot about that because some idiot wrote and directed a TV show that ruined, like, the last character in Star Wars that wasn't ruined was Obi-Wan Kenobi. He is mysterious. There's a mystique around him. Nobody knows what happened to this mysterious man out in the desert. Nobody knows. One of the best lines in Star Wars is when he says his own name in A New Hope. Obi-Wan Kenobi? He says it twice. Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's a name I haven't heard in a long, long time. Like, it's so distant. It's so mysterious that, like, he's, like, recalling that time period. And what they do, they're like, I've got an idea. When he's on Tatooine... Instead of him communing with Qui-Gon and grappling with the idea that he had to fearfully run into hiding like a coward and how that was the right choice and he's going to have to be patient and that the Force will bring about balance still from the bloodline of Darth Vader and Anakin. He has to trust in the hubris and the ideology of everything he's doubting. Instead of that, we get him babysitting Princess Leia and her running from bad guys. Oh gosh, it's so frustrating. I could have written a better story in my frickin' sleep than they wrote for the Obi-Wan TV show. It's just Star Wars. It's not that deep. I swear to frick, Eugene. I'm not testing the compressor today. You better frickin' watch you better watch yourself. You better frickin' watch yourself. It's not that deep. Watch Andor. and watch the moment that she says, fight the Empire, and tell me it's not that deep. The birth of the rebellion, the birth of the Empire. It's magnificent storytelling. And Obi-Wan Kenobi is like a coloring book brought to life. It's so dumb. It's so juvenile. You took one of the best, most somber characters and storylines, and you turned it into a joke. It's an absolute joke. We can't cover Star Wars without this coming up. It's almost impossible. I'm so angry about that show. I literally said before that show came out, I was like, you better not screw this up. You're dealing with Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's the last guy. He's the last man standing that the prequels didn't completely ruin. And you're bringing back Hayden Christensen. Let's go. Let's redeem this story arc. And they just dumped all over it. Oh, I hate it. It's so frustrating as a Star Wars fan. It's so frustrating. It would be like... I don't even know. It would be like hiring Robert Downey Jr. to do some offshoot Iron Man movie and it just being terrible and ruining his character and ruining his story arc. It'd be infuriating to like watch those movies for 10 years and see RDJ at the pinnacle of his career and the thing that happens in Endgame and then to come behind that and just ruin it. It'd be so frustrating. It would be extremely frustrating as a fan. This is what Phantom Menace felt like to those of us who were adults when it came out. We had spent decades arguing about the beginnings of Vader and Obi-Wan, and then we got that. Pod racing, Misa. That's exactly right. Garbage. Garbage. It's garbage. You're allowed to like it. Bellona's going to hate it a lot. Yeah, I'm not gatekeeping. You can like Obi-Wan all you want. I'm going to call a spade a spade. They shat all over the lore, the canon, the character. It's garbage. It doesn't... Like, you can right now watch Andor. And then you can watch Rogue One. And then you can watch New Hope. And there's this wonderful thread of consistency. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's like when you're reading The Wheel of Time and you learn about the backstory of the Aiel and why they don't use swords because Rand is in this time teleportation room or something and he gets these visions from back in time of how the Aiel went from peaceable tinkers and nomadic persons to these amazing warriors who won't touch a sword. It's beautiful, right? Why? Because the author knew and crafted this arc and this thread where it all comes together and you're like, oh my gosh, this is phenomenal. And you can watch Andor, and you can watch Rogue One, and you can watch New Hope, and it's like, beep, all intact. And you watch Obi-Wan Kenobi, and then you watch New Hope, and you're like, what in the world happened? The Wheel of Time books, Reckless, not the TV show. The Wheel of Time books. It's fantastic fantasy. Wonderful writing. That's how you create good story arcs. That's how you create good storytelling. Everything's connected. You don't get to just pick and choose. That's what the second movie did. He just picked and chose. I'm just gonna change stuff. You're an idiot. I'm just gonna change stuff. Like that's what they did with Obi-Wan. They were like, yeah, canon be damned. We're just gonna do whatever we want. Well, then why even call it Obi-Wan Kenobi? Call it Derpy Dopta Doopy. Like, who cares at that point? If you saw the prequels as a kid, I totally get having a love for it. You didn't walk in with expectations. It simply is what it is for you. Yeah, I mean, my kids, I'll be very interested to see what they think. I'll be very curious what my kids think when they watch them. They're super close to the age where I feel like, okay, I'm gonna let you guys watch Star Wars. Oh, it's 11:30. Shoot, we're supposed to be in the new stream. You guys got me ranting about Star Wars. If you don't know the lore, it's a good show. Even that's not true. No. You don't even have to know Star Wars lore to watch Obi-Wan to be like, this is some of the dumbest television I've ever watched. How is it compelling? Like, he's playing babysitter. How? She runs from killers and villains. She's a child. Child actors are always a risk. And she's adorable, and I'm sure she's as sweet as pie, but she ruins that TV show, and it's probably not even her fault. It's not even her fault, dude. It's bad television. If you just watch it from the perspective of storytelling and character development and compelling, character arcs, nothing happens. They run in a circle. The characters go like this. We're right back where we started. Leia's back at home, and I'm back on Tatooine, and nothing's really changed. Like, it's some of the worst storytelling ever. It's not good. It lacks in quality as a show. Yeah, Reva. Oh my gosh. That's, again, not her fault. She didn't write that character. She did the best she could with that character. Good night. Some of the worst television I've ever watched. And it just happens to be my favorite franchise. Like, ugh. I remember watching Star Trek, The Next Generation, and being struck at how far more consistent Star Trek has been as a franchise. Just way more consistent with the characters and the stories and connecting everything. Like, Picard's got a stinker of a season, but even Picard did a good job, I felt, keeping things together after all this time. That last season of Picard, it's like an extra season of The Next Generation. It's just a treat for Star Trek fans. It's just great. Oh, I've seen that. I've seen, how all the Star Wars films have the wrong name. Yeah. All right, hang on here. Let me get that open. And let me get over here. All right, guys, do me a favor. I'm going to keep the daily goal open. So we can still hit 50. We only need 8 more, but I am going to switch us to a new stream. Can you guys do me a favor and smash the like button right now? Get us above 300 likes. I'm going to spam a link in chat. We're going to go to a new stream so we can watch this trailer together in about 22 minutes, okay? Okay. Yeah, I can forgive Picard for having like one bad season when Star Trek was as consistent as it was. Yeah, I don't get why people hate on Solo either. I thought Solo was good. I honestly was so surprised. People were like, it's so bad, it's so terrible. And I watched it. I was like, Solo is like really, I actually thought it was really good. I need to rewatch it and feel it and see if I still feel the same way. But I remember being surprised that people were so hard on Solo. I thought Solo was perfectly fine. It wasn't like award winning, but people talked about it like it was utter trash. And I was like, what? I did not get the rough treatment that Solo received. All right. Do this. I'm sending my tweets, and then we're getting out of here. We're going to go to the new stream. All right. Solo caught strays that were fired at sequels? Yeah, maybe. All right. There's a link in chat. That is where we are headed. All right. Thanks so much for checking out this video. We are going to be co-streaming and watching together the brand new Star Wars Outlaws official story trailer. If you're watching the past broadcast, just skip ahead by 20 minutes. Sometimes I remember to chapter these, but if I don't, it's really easy. You can see over there it says 20 minutes. Just skip ahead. Going to give you my thoughts on this. Now, I did a stream and a monologue and a show this morning about Star Wars Outlaws and why I'm concerned. If you're interested in my thoughts, I might rehash some of this here. I also went on a massive rant about Obi-Wan and how great Andor is. So I'm going to end that stream and bring everybody over. If you want to go see any of that, that is available as a past broadcast on the channel. And we had a great day with members. 42 members on the day. I have gifted 5 already. Every 25 I give 5, so I gifted for the first 25. We're